Welcome to day 3. Today on my ukulele app, what I want to do is really focus in on the game aspect of it and get that part working. So here I am. I've just reopened Replit. It's actually good practice probably every day to start with a new agent chat. This is just going to clear that context window, let it start over again. One of the challenges with AI, LLMs, is that as that context window gets longer and longer, sometimes they find that it just starts to have a little bit of trouble and become like a little bit less smart over time because its head is full of everything you've told it before. So the thing I want to focus on today is we've got this focused practice mode, and it isn't that game-like. So what I want to do is actually take a little bit of time and think about how I want this practice to work. So got my ukulele here. And really what I want to be doing is I want to be able to start switching back and forth between the chords at a slow rate. And then once I've done that enough times and I'm doing it correctly each of those times, I'd like to have it then increase the speed. So a few different ways we could go about this. The first thing I want to do is just write down that idea I had. And I'm going to start a new GPT chat, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell it my idea. Okay, so I've typed up basically what I said, but I've done a little bit more detailed thinking. I wanted to have a UI that shows me which chord I'm playing next, and the visuals like a bouncing ball. I'm thinking about something like it, like a streaming musical bar. And I've thought a little bit about the details of how it should automatically speed up and slow down. So 10 times in a row correct, it should go by 5 BPM, and then wait for me to go 10 correct again. If I can't get 10 correct within 20, then it should slow down by 5 p.m. and reset the counters. Later on, I might want to play with these, but I don't think I need to have all of that yet. I'm just going to ask it, please write this up. Sometimes I say a junior engineer, sometimes I say a contractor engineer. I might try that. Let's give it a sense and see what it does. Nice. So it's filled in a few nice details. Some of these I agree with, some of them I don't. Now I have 2 different ways I can approach this. Part of the reason I put this in here was to get these details and I can kind of read them and learn about how it's doing it. A lot of it's just more detail than I need. It's already figured out on its own how to do the detection. So we're still in our first pass, our MVP prototyping vibe coding stage. So I actually just want to kind of copy my original thing. And I want to see what happens if I go straight to Replit and ask it to try this out. One of the reasons I'm trying to just put in my my quick paragraph of text with this vibe coding. One reason is to move fast, right? But another reason is because Flit is constantly updating their own AI agent. So what works and doesn't work one month might be different the next month. I don't want to assume that I need to keep giving it as much help as I did in the past, because it might get better and better. I like to kind of challenge it, see how good it is right now, and then I can learn what its limitations are and work back. You can also see on the screen here, we've got some errors. And what's really nice is I don't need to do anything about that. It's tried to render it. It realized it got an error. And you can see over here that it's noticing its own errors and going ahead to fix them. All right, it's worked for 3 minutes. We've got a new UI. Doesn't yet look like I'm going to see where this bouncing ball is, but I'll give it a try. Okay, so trying it out, I've noticed a few things. First of all is that the design of this is not working on one page. Let me see if we got any details from ChatGPT on this. This is suggesting the header has the beats per minute controls, a bouncing ball, chord tiles. Okay, some of this is good. I'm going to go ahead and start by copying this in. I don't think we need settings. I don't think we need this to flash. I think 4 is the right number of circles here. And then I don't want this to be actual full UI toasts. I'm just going to see if it helps to tell it how many pixels high it can have. This is actually a good time to point out that I do not need to be doing this inside this tiny little window, especially since we're talking about the UI being at a premium. I can go ahead and just open it up in its new tab. It reminds me this is a temporary development preview. So if you're watching this video and you go to this URL, it won't be live anymore. While we're waiting for Replit to redesign this page, I'm going to do the same thing I did the other day by asking some of my other apps to see if they can come up with a design. We used Lovable the other day and we had good success with that. Let's try making this design. You can see that Lovable is really design focused. And so you can see it's actually decided to take a design inspiration from Wood and classical musical education apps. We'll see if it comes up with a much better design. One thing I'm not sure of is whether or not Lovable is going to be as strong at things like listening to the actual music as it comes through. So let's see, isn't quite what I was expecting, but let's see what happens when we press start. Okay, so I want to have it improve this UI. So we've got a few things we need to do. The bouncing ball UI should always show when the ball should fall apart to bounce. I'm going to actually ask it to use SVG here. I'm not sure if that's what it had been doing before, but we're having good luck with that for our chord diagrams. So I'm asking it to fix the bouncing ball UI and to fix the chord listening and switching to the next chord. It's going. Let's see what's Lovable has come up with. Interesting. So here they basically have not actually implemented the web audio API. I don't know if that's a full limitation of Lovable or not, but let's take a look. Let's ask it. All right. So here we've got something that's sort of a interesting way that this vibe coding can get kind of frustrating, right? So it created a nice UI, and then it said, hey, a contractor's going to have to build this. Then coming on over here, I checked, I'm like, can you build it? And it said yes. And then it kind of looked like it was doing nothing. But now that I'm looking here, it does look like it's actually going ahead and building it. But for a second there, I thought it had just said yes and was just going to then say yes, but not do anything. Going to go back and try my Replit version again. So let's give that a refresh. Oh, it's switching which one it says, but it's not actually recording my streak. So I'll just let it know that. Streak bubbles and the streak. It's been doing a lot since I told it that it wasn't working. It says it sees the issue. When it says this, it's a little bit overly optimistic about seeing the correct issue, but it does at least think it saw an issue. So we'll see. One thing that I've really liked with Replit is if I have the same problem a few times in a row and it doesn't fix it, it'll often add more and more logging. And sometimes I'll even ask it to add more logging to help figure out what's going wrong. So it's been actually pretty good at helping the two of us working together to debug it. So you can see over here, it's added some debugging. You can see here, it's actually asking me to go look at the browser console, which is a little bit complex of a thing to do. I happen to know how to look at the browser console, but I'm curious if I ask it if it will tell me how. Great. So you can see here that when you're talking to the AI agent, it's not every single time going to make changes to code. You can actually also just ask it directly questions. Sometimes it'll get eager from your question and decide to make a code change. But here we can see that it's actually told us how to do it. Let's give it another try. What I'm going to do now is just take actually just a straight up screenshot of what I've seen. I'm going to paste that one in. I'm going to also just give it a screenshot of the whole page. To do this, I use Control Command Shift 4, and you can do space if you wanted to then take a picture of the whole screen. All right, and just like I would with a human engineer, I'll let it know that I've got the screenshots and let me know if you wanted me to expand anything or see more of any of that. At the very least, you can see here how exciting it is to do this vibe coding, where it's like, oh, I see the issue. Oh, here's what it is. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and fix all this. It's very optimistic and it makes me feel kind of optimistic. And then sometimes that leads to frustration when it doesn't work. But it does tend to feel, for me at least, like we are making forward progress all the time. This time it only took 1 minute of work to try to fix this problem. So let's see. I've noticed if I don't press anything at all, it should be filling these in with X's, and it's not. So I'm going to let it know that because that might also be a hint as to what's going wrong in the code. You can see I'm not being that careful about working with this AI, and part of that is because this is my draft version. So I don't it's okay if it like misses something or gets it wrong. And also that on the one hand, my goal here is to build this app. But the other, my goal really is to understand what these AI agents with this vibe coding apps are capable of. It's going ahead and cleaning up debugging console logs when I'm not sure that it is correctly getting the streak system. Give it a try. Not seeming to work quite yet. All right, I'm going to just first off see if it marks it X's when I miss a beat. All right. All right, I'm going to let it know that I pressed start, waited 2 measures, and didn't see it. Give it another try. So one thing I'm wondering about is whether the mistake is just in these circle UIs or if it could be in the number as well. So I wonder if I'm going to ask it to not just do the UI, but also that instead of it saying 0 of 10, it should say 0 of how many have actually passed. So right now I'm still in an incremental debugging approach. I'm letting it take a look at what it thinks is wrong, add some debugging, trying it out, telling it what the new error message is, and just going back and forth a few times. I'm going to let it do this one more time. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try a few different approaches. And one is that I'm just going to ask it to look at all of the code that it's doing and see if there's any better way to do it. See if it like reviews its entire approach and is there a cleaner, simpler, more robust way to write this logic. Okay, so interestingly, it increased to 1, but then it didn't seem to increase past that. So we have a little bit more information. It's very tempting to ask it one more time to go through this, but as promised, I'm going to go and do my other approach. I will let it know what's going on here. I'm just going to ask it to take a full pass through this and see if that's another way that we can try to get it to think about redoing this whole system and if it can come up with a better approach. Can you take a clean slate view of this and see what might be better from scratch? Okay, 2 minutes and it has rebuilt the system. Let's give it a try. All right. It looks like something's going really well. Now, I've noticed that when it says incorrect chord, I don't know which one I've actually gotten, but this seems like it's a lot better. Just going to take a look and see what it does when it gets to the very end. All right. So it looks like it does missing a little bit of the logic when it gets to 21 to go down, but it's got a lot of good stuff here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually write down everything that's on my mind because I'm worried I'm going to forget it all if I don't just put it down. There's a chance that it's not going to get it right, but at least then I can go back in my chat here and see all the things I had noticed. This screen is interesting. I don't think it should be showing this screen right now, but it does actually point to a really nice thing and one of the reasons I love Replit, which is that up to this point, we've been using these very, very silly dev URLs, and you can send that to someone else. And while you have Replit open over here, it'll work. But what Replit has that's very nice is you can actually go ahead and deploy your app once you finish. And that means put it into production, make it a real app with its real web page that'll stay up even if I'm not at my computer. But for now, I need to figure out why it thinks that I need to deploy. Well, this is better than I expected. All right, this is definitely a little bit wonky. I'm going to start a new window and try to do each of my changes here individually. Let's roll back. I'm going to try feeding it the errors one at a time. It's interesting. It says it detected F, and that was wrong, but I thought that it was supposed to be getting F. All right, so it's trying to fix the issue. It says that it's detected a race condition. I have to say that race conditions in coding are very, very rare. So I'm a little suspicious of this change, but we'll give it a try. Something's still a little bit fishy here. All right. In order to make this debugging just a little bit easier, what I want to do is actually work on this progress indicator and have it be more clear in here. All right, let's give it a try. Okay, so you can see some really weird stuff is going on with this progress indicator. See how long this context window is. I might want to start a new chat. Okay, so I'm going to try that trick that worked before and just ask it to review how that progress indicator is working and the timings of it and make sure to build it in a simple and robust way. Sometimes I'll say that follows best practices. If it doesn't work, what I'll ask it is to first tell me what your simpler, more robust approach is. That lets me do two things. One is it makes sure that it's actually thought it through before it starts building. The second is that I could then double check that approach with another tool like ChatGPT. When I'm working with AI agents, one of the benefits is that I can easily ask one AI agent to double check the work of another without any hurt feelings. Let's give it a try. All right. You can see that it was totally disconnected from the actual beats. I'm going to ask it to reconsider, tell me what it's thinking about, and try to consider two options and tell me the pros and cons of each. I opened up the file it's changed because I am starting to get a little tempted to send this over to ChatGPT. I'm going to ask ChatGPT for some help here. A tiny trick we can use here, because I'm putting so much context in here, is I'm going to use XML tags, so it knows the beginning and the end. And then I do want to pass it this file. This feels a little bit more trustworthy to me. I'm just going to let Replit know. Let's see if this feedback ends up working better. All right, it worked for 4 minutes. It felt like eternity. Well, that's not good. For an error like this, I just copy and paste a screenshot in. That's enough for it. Right. It is not detecting. Something here seems a little bit worse. Thinking on where we are right now, based on what I've learned so far, I think the thing to do now is to stop with this first draft of a vibe coded app that's really just like a pure prototype and take some of the things we've learned about the parts of the code that are sensitive, that are hard to get right. And I think it might be time to move on to V2 of our app, where we take those lessons we've learned about the parts that are tricky and use those to start an app from scratch, but it doesn't have any of the previous cruft of the old ways we've done stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and try that tomorrow because we've already been at this for an hour and 45 today. So thanks for sticking with me through all of these challenges and learning what works and doesn't work. Hopefully this is helpful for some of you. And thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.